All right, I think we're live. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the InnoFact Show, the Revenue Management System session. My name is Pierre, and I will be the host today. Um, Carvin, unfortunately, is unable to join us, so I will assist to be the host. I will also be a panelist. Now, as a first step, I would like to thank InnoFact for having us today. And I would like to introduce our two other panelists, Christy and Jonathan. So, Christy, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks, Pierre. Hi, everyone. My name's Christy Edwards. I'm the Director of Revenue Management for Best Western Hotel Group in Australasia. So I've been in the industry for about 20 years and been in revenue management for about 10 years.
Great. How many hotels are you looking after?
We look after a portfolio of about 90 hotels across Australia and New Zealand.
Okay, that's pretty huge, right? Okay.
Keeps us busy.
I can imagine. Jonathan?
Hi, Pierre. Hi, Christy. Jonathan, I'm the General Manager for Holiday Express Kuala Lumpur City Centre. So been with IAG for a long time. I spent almost 10 years of my career in revenue management, looking after single properties as well as group of properties. The countries that I practiced revenue management was in New Zealand, 3 years there. Then I head over to Hong Kong for a couple of years. Come back to Malaysia for as an area role, look after about 7 hotels. Then I spent some time in Singapore, look after 7 hotels as well as a revenue director. So, and now I'm back home being a property general manager. So, pretty much it's about executing the learnings and the knowledge that we have. So it's good to be back here.
Right, it's great to see a revenue manager that became general manager. We don't see that many usually. Interesting background. Okay, as for me, so I've been working revenue management for the last 10 years of my life. During my career, I've been working with a number of revenue management systems, business intelligence tools. A couple of years back, I started a company called Cypher Hospitality, which provide revenue management consulting for a range of hotels. So we've been doing work for hundreds of properties in Southeast Asia. We're working with about 7 different countries. And in the last 1.5 years, I actually got myself trained as a certified data analyst. And I also launched a business intelligence platform earlier this year under a company that I've co-founded called Avalon Analytics. So Avalon is a business intelligence platform for revenue managers, but also anyone that is involved in the revenue management process and that is really helping hotelier to take their revenue management to the next level. So for today, this session, we're talking revenue management systems. If there's any question, please feel free to type that down in the chat and that will be communicated to me. And with no further ado, let's get started on the first question. So I think this question is one of the things most general managers have been asking me for the last year is revenue management system during COVID. Do we still need to continue a revenue management system subscription during those times? So Jonathan, what's your take on this?
I think it's still fundamentally very important. Yes, you have hotels where you got 0 occupancy or your hotels is closed, but if you remain open, you're running about 2, 3, 5% occupancy in market that you're struggling. I think it's definitely still important. It's about understanding now with the so little rooms that stay with you, understanding our guests, and understanding their spending behavior and what room type they're booking and why are they still traveling to the hotels. It's still important to understand the guest behavior, so that the data that you collect now would help you to when the market start open up. It is important because revenue management, everyone sees it, that it's just that guy behind the computer looking at graph and data and stuff like that. But revenue management is about total revenue as well. What's your guest spending behavior in food and beverage? What are they coming to your hotels for? It's still important, and the discipline and the practice still need to continue, even though you're running 2 to 5% occupancy.
I think you're very right. Christy, what's your take?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I'd agree with that. I think initially some of the recommendations that they may have made in the early days may have been a bit off because they were relying on historical data, but the systems adapt and learn and respond all the time. And it's important for continuity that, you know, the system is still continuing to gather that data so that you've got a complete picture as you're starting to recover and you can prepare for the rebound of travel.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, a lot of time, you know, we're getting question, is it worth the money? Because the forecast is not going to be accurate. Like there's no way we can forecast in the current situation. And therefore the pricing recommendation are not very accurate, right? But the thing, and this, we really seen it in a lot of different markets where we have a little bit of demand. How do you get ahead of competition, you know, and you need to be understanding exactly like who's coming in, what are they booking, and that will help you to like capture more of this market. But also, if you want to develop a lot of offers, you need to understand exactly who you're going to be making those offers for, right? And you're going to need a tool for that, because with the PMS only, you can do some stuff, but it remains quite limited if you want to be ahead of the competition, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you need to use a combination of tools. So, you know, your RMS being one of them, your PMS is obviously a vital part of it, provided the data is being updated correctly. But, you know, using other platforms and like rate shopping tools, parity tools, forecasting tools, STR for benchmarking, etc. There's a lot, I think data is actually more important now than it ever was before.
Right.
And shorter, more granular data so that you can compare real time frames and real booking pace to, you know, even last week as opposed to last year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. The only thing that it's, you know, when we're doing revenue management, a lot of time is that now there's so many different tools and that you have to look into the range. And that's why you know, like what we're trying to achieve a lot of time is to regroup everything into like one central place where you can see all that, all your comparison, your STR, your rates, all that stuff. I think it's important because otherwise we're wasting so much time as revenue managers with all the different screens looking at different systems. Yeah.
That's right. There's a lot out there to choose from.
Yeah. So with that in mind, how do you maximize the business during a low demand environment? Jonathan.
So my hotel was one of those lucky ones who has got quarantine business, but that's not stopping about, you know, just getting more revenue. I think in you're running in the hotels, whether or not you're independent hotels or your chain hotels, but you're still a single unit. And as general manager, we need to look after making sure that every ringgit get come in that we can get, we'll get in. We look at, you know, bento takes away. We look at the offices around us who needed to reduce the capacity in their offices, and we will work with them to look at, hey, I got guest rooms that you can see either two or one person and work with that. So those, we call it work from hotel package. So those are the things that you could do depending on where you're located. Like I said, food and beverage is one key area, and people are a lot of businesses. Maybe the food trucks or restaurants are closed because they're not allowed to open and because of lockdowns and stuff. But as a hotel, when you're still operating, you can always offer the takeaway. So in our case, we offer bento boxes to deliver to the next door office building. So and about the, you know, the function space that you have, you know, what can you do and how can you rent out to, you know, maybe the medical department in the government sector as a vaccination center or as a test center. So it's about using that space.
Using your function space. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because in country when they got a lot of cases of skyrocketing, they need space for testing, then they need space for vaccination. So always work
Right.
with government agency and medical clinics to get that done. So you get some income there. So it's about thinking outside the box. About one thing
Right.
that I noticed sometimes is that being revenue management is not just about rooms. So now rooms has got nothing, right? You got no, your borders is closed, you have got no tourists. Then you need to start looking at your space, what you have, your F&B, and the space, how you rent out and how you work on deliveries and stuff. So those are little cash that comes in to help you.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're really right here. And also it really depends on like the situation of your hotel, right? Because I've been working with hotels during lockdown, and if you see the hotel, we found that yes, we could get some quarantine business from some hotel. Some other hotel at some point there was a lot of staycation, but how do you get ahead of the game? How do you get the right offer, for your staycation? So that was one of the things. The other thing is a lot of people were stuck in the city. So there's actually hotels that were doing well is the one that was specialized in long stay. So we actually been turning a lot of these properties as long stay and having all these offer and targeting all that to get our share of this market. That's what we observe in the city environment. In resort, what we saw here is that in many different countries that I've been working with, like Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand, we saw that there was actually a lot of local that would want to travel, right? And then historically, some of the hotels in certain destinations were already relying on local market. And so those hotels were doing well, but then for the other one, they had to like adjust and really prepare some offers and target those people. So then there's a lot of work of like research as to finding out who's really traveling still, like which part of the country are they coming from. So, there's a lot of link with the digital marketing so that we can efficiently target those people and make offer that they actually gonna purchase, right? So that was one of the thing that we did for the resort environment. How about you, Christy?
Yeah, definitely. It was looking at what business was available to capture. So going with what Jonathan said, some hotels have gone down the quarantine path. There was demand in quite a lot of our areas for government travel. So they're essential workers. There was, the police force who were doing state border patrols and things like that.
Right.
That they were able to actually get accommodation business from, and then that also increased the food and beverage revenue as well, because obviously they couldn't go out to restaurants to eat. So there was that sort of that they had to eat at the hotel every meal, which was beneficial in the F&B revenue section. There was also a number of properties that were able to capitalise on people that worked in the healthcare industry and that thought that they were at risk and didn't want to take that risk home to their families. So they may have stayed at a local hotel so that they could have their own room and not put their families at risk while they were working at a hospital or a vaccination
Right.
centre, what have you. So there was that opportunity in that space as well. And then there was also, we had city hotels offering that were close to universities, for example, or close to office buildings that, similar to Jonathan, they offered, the rooms as a work from home or an office space with, reliable internet and a quiet space to work. So yeah, there was quite a few different options. Obviously, still low demand for accommodation, but you capitalize on what you can.
And coming back to the other sources of revenue, right? So how do you manage that from a revenue management perspective, right? How do you manage that?
I think you need to look at where you can add value to the customer You need to really take into account all of your hotel costs. So it was looking at, you know, your entire P&L or your entire budget, reducing what expenditure you could, and then looking at your different revenue streams of, okay, where can I increase this and how much ROI can I get from these different things. So it was adapting your F&B offerings, as we said, like doing takeaway, outside catering, as Jonathan said.
Yeah. I think Jonathan also was very creative on that, right? On the solution to generate ancillary revenues, right?
Yeah, it's a whole revenue journey, right? So we talk about customer journeys, and we look after the customers and understanding what their needs are, and then so we tailor to what they want to do. In the past, in a normal time, the customer comes in, check into the hotels, and then out and about, go shopping, and go partying outside, and then come back to your hotels and sleep. But now they are not that flexible, so it's about looking after their whole journey and where we can maximize their spending, the laundry, the room service,
Right.
what are the things that you can provide with the same, because they just can't go out. And then, when Chris talked about then managing your revenue stream and managing your expenses is crucial. And we as a revenue man, we were very manager. We just look after revenue, but times has moved on. It's they are always profitable business. Not all business are profitable, so we need to look after that area too. So I didn't realize that then when I was going to fresh into revenue. But then when it comes to being a general manager now, so it's about how can we improve that
Right.
that journey, either revenue journey or cost journey, and obviously the guest journey to maximize and to manage and reduce the cost where we can.
No, I really agree. And I think that we've seen a lot of creativity out there. For instance, I was working with a hotel, and what we did is that we had a group of actually factory workers that couldn't go home because of the lockdown in the city. So they were staying at the hotel. One of the things that they did is set up just like a bucket with a few beers inside that was set when they would come home from work. And then that's the thing that everyone go for. Of course, it's got to be the correct pricing, but that was one of the things. In the more interesting new source of revenues, we actually saw that when they were having a lot of people that were stuck in the hotel, they actually started making a haircut place for all these guests that couldn't have a salon open outside. So they were actually doing all that in-house, providing all these revenue sources. I think all that is fantastic. What is great though is that we found, I think, a lot of new revenue sources that we probably will keep once the business come back. And I think that would be something really interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. On the other side, one of the other points I want to discuss is when it comes to direct channels. So we've seen a lot of hotels, and I've been working a lot, that found ways to increase the direct channels production as opposed to OTAs, right? I'm not sure if that's something that you've been seeing this trend as well during the last 18 months.
Look, yes, we definitely have. Direct business, direct channels has skyrocketed compared to, and there are recovery of those channels as well, compared to any other channel, is much higher. I think the main reason is for the comfort and the security of the guest. Guests are looking for that assurance of speaking with the hotel directly, to know what restrictions are in place at the hotel, what are their cleaning protocols, am I going to be safe when I go and stay there, and what facilities are open and when are they open, so what will I be able to experience during my stay. So that's been a really good trend for the hotels. Obviously direct channels are at a much lower cost per booking, than your traditional OTA channels or other channels. So I think capitalizing on that now is very important for future recovery and with the rebound.
Right.
Yeah, definitely right there, Christy. I think about the consumer now, the guest that comes in the future, and when they understand, you know, in the hotels, how are you keep up with the hygiene and cleanliness safety, and you know, how can you help me to have a safe stay, and how can you make sure that my safety, my health is looked after. So I think it's important to look at that. Well, we can't take away from the benefit from OTA for sure. I mean, they're still our good partners in some form, but the guests are wanting to know directly how a hotels can ensure that my stay is as safe as possible. So it's good time to definitely look at, you know, what are the information that you put onto your website, and what, you know, how can you get your direct bookings from your own channels.
Right. I think there's actually a question that's relevant to that in the chat. So I'm just gonna go and put on that because it's completely related to what we're talking about. How can hotels win the war with OTAs post-COVID? That's not an easy question. But I think here it's a very interesting one because, I mean, win the war, yeah, it's gonna be tough. Always what we've told is that, okay, we'll never be able to fight with the level of marketing spending that the OTAs are gonna be having out there, right? But what makes us able to capture, you know, the direct channel in COVID time? So there's a few points that you mentioned which are very good. Another thing that I observed is loyalty programs. And of course, this will depend on like which chain you're working with, or if you're smaller or independent. But I think loyalty programs are something that have been doing some really good offering during this environment, which have been very strong. The other thing is, during COVID time, one of the things observed in several hotels is that the digital marketing activities that they've been doing is a lot more than what we normally have. And I do think that there's a direct link between the digital marketing that we are doing online. And I don't think that we're reviewing enough all these strategies with the revenue management committee in a weekly meeting. Because having all these right offers that are placed, positioned and visible and really attractive will help to take over. Why would people just book on an OTAs? I think that's one of the key things here. Well, what's your take on that?
Look, I definitely agree. I mean, we need to work with the OTAs. You know, although everyone likes to call them an enemy, or that we're in a war with them, they do provide an important source of bookings to everybody. I mean, it's just a fact. What we need to do is take advantage of their marketing power, and if we get bookings from them, when those guests arrive at our hotel, make sure that we convert them to direct customers for next time. So we've been doing a lot of work in terms of digital marketing. The revenue team work very, very closely with the sales and marketing team to make sure that the messaging that we are putting out in all of our digital marketing is relevant to the revenue strategy that we want to put in place. And it's very, very strongly around our loyalty program as well. And rewarding those guests and making sure that they're choosing us over our competitors when they can travel again and when they make another booking. Adding to that, I think also to retain those loyal guests, or COVID's opening up, I think, a lot of new guests that wouldn't traditionally stay at your hotel. So I don't know if everyone else has seen this, but when we are seeing signs of recovery, it's usually in the leisure segment. Right. Traditionally, we've been quite a corporate brand. So we're seeing a lot more new types of guests come through than we usually would have. So customer service and the customer experience is really, really key at the moment. Well, it always is, obviously, that's why we're here as hoteliers, but really key to make sure that those guests are going to choose you and talk about you and return to you and your brand or sister hotels and not your competitor. when they travel again.
All right. Okay, another question is related to operational efficiency. So, I mean, I'm not the general manager, right? But there's a lot of things that, yeah, we've been doing a lot of cost cutting everywhere, and that affected revenue management, that affected the operation. So how can we improve the operational efficiencies in relation to revenue management? Jonathan?
Yeah, I'll take it. So as a brand in Holiday Express, we're famous for multitasking. And so, you know, in a normal time, my guest service agent would be serving breakfast and, you know, at the breakfast room helping out in the morning part. And then after that, you know, that he or she will go back to the front desk at the checkout time and check out the same guest. So these are the multitasking that we already been doing. But when this COVID hit, and, you know, I can see a lot more other hotels going on to multitasking. Now that's how we're going to get that operational efficiency comes in. Now you have there's some hotels who executed payroll measure or, you know, retrenchment. You know, when business are tough, right? So you left with handful of staff members where you need to make sure that you look after these guests, right? So it's about multitasking for the team members, making them understand that, you know, how it helps, right? So when you multitask an employee, number one is they don't, you know, stand behind the desk, check in 5 guests today, and then that's it, nothing to do. They feel bored, and then they are not motivated. But even multitasking, they could be helping out at the breakfast, they could be helping out with sending room service. And that's, you know, it helps you with your manning count will still be, you know, reduced, but then they're doing more. And that's adding on to their mental health. It's just, okay, I'm doing something. Yes, I have 5 guests, but I'm doing 15 times of, you know, interaction. So your revenues is struggle to come in. You're trying to do whatever you can to get the revenue, but then when the revenue comes in, it's not enough. Then, you know, how you manage your cost is about that. Practicing that efficiency. So it's about multitasking. And making sure that, you know, the every bit of the journey for the employee and for the guests are pretty much the same. So now, when you have more interaction with the guests and there's less guests, and that improves your guest satisfactions. So when you improve the guest satisfactions, adding to the point about OTAs, you could easily convince them to book with you direct next time when they come back. So not having a war, but work with each other. And with the low number of guests you have, the interaction increases, the guest satisfaction increases. So that's where you protect the future. Whatever you're doing now, bits and pieces are going to benefit the future for sure.
Okay. On my side, operational efficiency. So for us, yeah, one of the key things is that a lot of time, the revenue management team have been shrinking. So we used to have, you know, director of revenue, an analyst, and maybe an assistant. And now there's only one guy doing all that, which might not be the most qualified. That happens a lot of time. A lot of what I see as well is clustering in revenue management. So we see that more and more, like how do you manage multi-order and this kind of thing, right? And I think that that's why we need to have a good tool that actually support that, you know, business intelligence tool that can actually assist us, that include all the automation, because since we have a lot less people, we need to be a lot more efficient. And I think that's where we can have a new tool in the industry, which will utilize all these new technologies of automation so that, you know, you don't have to spend time doing a report ever again, right? Everything should be automated in 2021 so that you can focus as a revenue manager on finding ways of making more revenues, I think.
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely agree with that. We've spent a lot of time on our reporting efficiencies and making sure that they were a lot faster, and that the level of detail that we could bring through and analyze quickly was a lot more efficient during this time. so that, you know, you can make obviously faster and better decisions for the hotels. But in terms of operational efficiencies, like Jonathan was talking about, related back to revenue management, is, you know, we're really looking at, so the demand's low, where can we save on our costs? But in terms of promoting bookings and things, let's try and grow our average length of stay. So we've got reduced cleaning costs then. So that was a really strong one, and we actually have seen average length of stay growth throughout the COVID period, which was helped a fair bit in reduced cleaning costs. And then also things along the lines of self-service buffets are not allowed in our region, and I'm assuming they're not for a lot of the world. So things like food wastage has reduced as well, because everything's, you know, a la carte, off the menu, room service. You don't have all those beautiful, lovely buffets sitting there, but you're throwing things out at the end of the day.
Okay. All right. We have one last point to discuss before we go on to the question. There's quite a few questions in the chat. So the last point is regarding the reopening strategies. So how can you be efficient in your reopening once the countries are reopening? What the successful strategy here?
I'll go. One thing that so for me, I would, for my hotel, I consider closed hotels because we got contracted for quarantine business, right? But then we never stop on executing or looking at our sales strategy and marketing strategy, because we could turn around and say the hotel opens you know, tomorrow or next month. So what are we going to do? And it's always about understanding and refresh. There's always be a target to continue to work with. One thing that I find beneficial now is that visit my competitors, because with this pandemic, there's so many other elements that goes into, you know, not just services. It's about the cleanliness, the hygiene and stuff. So going to have a look at the competitors and what are they doing and how are they executing their practices in terms of, you know, cleaning your rooms and hygiene and stuff, and how is their you as a guest and what's your customer journey going into your competitors. This is the perfect time to do that, to understand who you're competing with, apart from understanding, you know, yourself, your hotel. So it's about understanding that, and that would gives you a bit of a, you know, insight in, you know, who you're up against with, who, you know, do you really have a new competitors, although it's the same hotels, but then the practices, things that they do would slightly change. So I suggest to go into which you did. It's about whatever the data that we collected now and whatever the guest behaviors that we detect now, although it's a local market or, you know, domestic, either corporate or leisure, it's about understanding these data and keep them for your prepare for opening, because the chances are the behavior, the spending behavior, the stay behavior, and the booking behavior, and how long to stay will still be continuing when you know, we're back to normal a little bit. So these are the time that actually, you know, get busy when, you know, understanding when it will open and how the borders are going to open, and, you know, how the domestic travel market is behaving. It's absolutely important now. So that's what we're doing.
Christy, what's your take on this?
Yeah, look, I actually think it's a really good time to really go back to basics and review everything. You know, start with your customers, start with your customer reviews. As Jonathan said, look up your competitors' reviews as well. So what are they doing well? What are we doing well? What are customers actually talking about right now, and what do they want? And so what decisions can I make from that information? What can I implement at my hotel to get ready for higher demand? And then it's going through, again, you know, all your online presence, all your OTAs, your own website, making sure your photography, all your images are clean and fresh, and really highlighting that cleanliness is, you know, a safe environment at the hotel. Make sure your photos aren't from 5 years ago and a dark room, because today's consumer is not going to want to book that. So making sure everything's clean, fresh, up to date, and really highly focused on basically what the customer priorities are going to be, which are safety and cleanliness and comfort, obviously. And then, you know, from there, it's always back to the data. You know, look at your data. What are the guest booking patterns? What are the guest cancellation patterns? What local events do I have? What opportunities am I going to have to capitalize on bookings coming in? And making sure you're setting up your rates accordingly. I don't think that anyone needs to do huge discounts once demand picks up. It's going to be people just want to travel and escape again. And I don't think that having huge discount pricing is going to win, you know, that extra booking over the competitor. It's all going to be about the experience and flexible booking conditions, so that the guest has confidence that if a restriction suddenly comes into play again, that they can move their stay or they can cancel their booking.
I mean, yeah, I really agree with you with that, because I've seen some hotels, like for instance, Phuket, that they did the sandbox, right? And some hotels were actually requesting for a prepaid non-refundable. And that doesn't make any sense because the guests don't even know if they're going to be able to come to the island, right? So why would you do something like that? So I've seen some hotels very successful take some business. And there was a point that you were mentioning with regards to the pricing. Yes, everyone went and dropped the rate, but there were a lot of opportunities to actually utilize your higher room categories. If you are lucky enough to have your suites, your villas. I mean, I actually have hotels that managed to get a higher paid occupancy on villas compared to entry-level room during COVID, because, you know, everyone has been discounting the rate. So it was to a level that everyone could afford, and most people, and therefore it was more about what are the inclusion, what is the overall experience, as you mentioned, I believe. And then on the other side, I think for us, what we're doing, you know, when we're looking at reopening strategy, is that we need to make assumptions, which are very hard to make, but we need to have a plan for every different segment that we're working with. If we go into direct channel, indirect channel, what country are going to be booking that, what's their lead time, and all this kind of thing. You need to know that information. We need to have a plan to say, when are we going to be targeting all that? And this plan needs to be in synergy with the digital marketing plan, because that's going to have to, you know, make our hotel visible. That's what you would do for online. But then you also have your corporate, for instance. What's the strategy? Is corporate expected to come back in 2022? Are your RFPs going to be producing? I don't think so, but it doesn't mean that there are no opportunities. So it would be very different on your market. And then, you know, there's also like what you can do with the groups, the wedding. There's a lot of wedding that's waiting to be planned. And based on the restriction in each city, we need to have offers that are ready to go out there. So I think having a plan for each different segment based on the key booking that we have is key. All right. So I think that's it for discussion for now. I have quite a few questions in the chat. So do you have anything else to add, or we can move on to the questions?
I can move on the questions.
Okay. All right. First one. How do I know if revenue management solution will solve my business problem? Will there be a sufficient return on my investment? I mean, okay, how do I know if a revenue management solution will solve my business problem? So the first thing is that to identify what are the business problem, because, okay, typically a revenue manager, what are they spending their time doing, you know? Is it a problem that they need to be more efficient at their job? Is it a problem that they need to be more efficient at forecasting? Is it a problem that they are pretty junior and they need recommendation on the pricing? I think, you know, we need a little bit more because every hotel is different. And I can't say that every single revenue management system will be adapted to every hotel, right? So I think you need to have a little bit more study on like what are the questions that you're trying to answer. And yes, there are tools to help in pretty much everything. So yeah, will there be a sufficient return on my investment? I mean, yeah, it depends on the size of your property. If you have, you know, a 10 rooms hotel, it's a lot harder, but usually any hotel that's a pretty decent size, you know, you're looking at a few $100s, which can be like 2-3 room amounts that you're paying for your revenue management system. And yes, usually it makes up for it very quickly. Jonathan, you have any point to add on this?
Yeah, being a chain hotels, obviously we can leverage on the clusterings and one revenue manager look after a few properties, and that will be kind of quite kind of straightforward. If it's an independent hotels, yeah, you're right. It's about where you're going to get your revenue streams are, and if you can find someone with that skills to look at the total revenue rather than just room revenue, then there is a potential to look at that. But having said that, for independent hotels, there's a lot of small companies, the revenue management companies that that you could outsource and look at that and negotiate with the terms, and see how both can be beneficial from it. Sometimes it's not sometimes you think, oh, the consulting company might charge you my arm and legs, but that's always for negotiation, right? And this is unprecedented time. So it's about identifying what you want for your properties and what's available. If you look at your own hotels and see, where are the opportunities that you can make money, and then deciding for yourself and says, okay, what kind of model best, for you as an independent hotels. And that's where you can determine whether or not there's an ROI for it.
All right. Christy, any thought on this question?
Yeah, look, as you both said, it's completely dependent on the type of hotel it is, and really also the management structure of the hotel. Right. How involved is management in revenue management practices? If you do it in-house, if you outsource it, just implementing an RMS system is not going to solve your problems. You need somebody to take ownership of revenue management for the hotel. So whether that's somebody on site, whether that's a cluster revenue manager, whether that's an outsourced revenue management company, somebody needs to take ownership of that, and they can certainly utilize an RMS to help them with the revenue management strategy. But a revenue management system on its own is not really going to solve all your problems.
Right.
It's an active thing. Revenue management, is so dynamic, and it moves constantly and takes constant monitoring and adjusting. You can't just leave that to one system.
Agreed. Okay, another question was question for the local market. Should we reduce the price to have the opportunity to increase the hotel occupancy or maintain at normal price? Is there a way to determine the hotel price that guest is affordable to maximize both ADR and occupancy?
Okay, I'm going to jump in on this one.
Right.
Across Australia and New Zealand, we had quite a few months where recovery was definitely improving, and in a lot of the regional areas, it was actually outpacing 2019, good year figures. Throughout the entire pandemic, whether hotels have been in lockdown or not, I have been encouraging all of our hotels to maintain their rate at the very least, and not to implement large discounts. Obviously, it has to be relevant to your market and your competitive set. But I definitely wouldn't be participating in a race to the bottom in discounting. It's not necessary. If there's no demand, if there are no guests traveling, then I can't sell a room at $1 if there's no guest traveling. So that there's no reason to cut into your bottom line for that.
Yeah, you
Also
can't
make
create
recovery
demand.
much harder. You know, to build your rate up again to a higher rate, it's much more difficult to do. So we're actually selling rates higher now than we were last year or in 2019 in a lot of places, and you know, getting better overall revenue and RevPAR from that. In some cases, yes, the occupancy is slightly less, but if I'm making more per room, then it's balancing out. Right.
I think, yeah, one of the key thing here is, I mean, as you mentioned, like if you discount, we're at a level where all hotels are affordable for the people that we're targeting, right? So it's more about bundling, adding value into your offer, you know. I'd rather do a free upgrade than just doing a discount, because as a guest as well, I'm much more keen on jumping towards deals that include, you know, higher room categories, suites, villa, whatever. So all this is why I think it's better to have a solid offer and to bundle more than just going and discounting. Yes, of course, if everyone has been dropping the rate by 50%, at some point you're gonna need to be, you know, adjusting your rate. You don't have to be under everyone else though, because that's what a lot of people like to see. But yeah, I think in revenue management, we see that always this war. And I think the worst part of it is that everyone we talk to, they always think that their neighbor is the one dropping the rates. You know, so everyone's like, yeah, we just started dropping the rate. So we're discussing a lot of that at revenue meetings. But yeah, I don't think dropping the rate is the only thing to do here. We have to stay affordable, but bundling, making the offer. Yeah. All right. What else do we have? Please explain possible way of communication between assets managers and revenue managers. Jonathan, how do you deal with that?
Traditionally, the revenue managers reports into either the director of sales and marketing or the general managers, and they don't talk to the assets manager directly. Assets manager, I'm assuming now it's either the owner himself or, you know, the company that, you know, the owns hotels and run the hotels. I think it's important that the revenue managers get involved into these meetings, because they are the one with the facts. They are the one with the data. They are the one with the information, you know. So I believe the assets managers and the owners, they know the situation, right? So it's not about they don't know, they don't bury their head in the sand and refuse to think the pandemic is hitting, right? So, but the communications between the revenue managers and the assets managers has to be more regular. Understanding, you know, how the pricing decision come about, understanding what's the flow of data and how that data comes in and stuff. It's always important. If you have got that open communication from the start, you know, everyone to understand, everyone's the same page, right? So hypothetically, your revenue managers wasn't involved in your, you know, monthly meeting with your owners or your assets manager. Good time to start now. Good time to actually bring them in, you know, so hey, this is the data that we're seeing. This is what, you know, it's telling us a story, right? This is what we should be, you know, trying to go and do that and execute. So if you haven't got a revenue manager talking to asset manager, yep, start now. I think it's important. And when you have got the revenue manager involved into, you know, discussions like this and making sure that everyone's on the same page, it's easy for you to get through this situation. This is a fact, right? So I used to have a revenue managers who just talk to me, and no, you know, we go into the monthly meetings, right? When I was a revenue, I goes into the monthly management meetings with the owners. I goes into the forecast and also the budget meetings with the owners, because the revenue managers is the one with the facts and the data.
Right.
And it helps right? So it's not going for emotion. No, there's no emotions in there. There's facts and data. So it's important that they understand. And Pierre, you said much earlier about it's very hard to find a revenue manager become a general manager, but I think my involvement into the management meetings with the owners, it helps my journeys more easier to transition, right? So there can be a lot more revenue managers become general managers, because if you start involving them and letting them tell the stories, everyone's the same page. There's no ambiguity. Everyone knows exactly what the hotels is heading into.
I couldn't agree more. I think I've seen a lot of time that we don't have the transparency that we've been having. And I've been working for a lot of different properties where, yeah, they would like to tweak the information that we're presenting to owners. But, if the situation is bad, it's not our fault, right? Like, it's bad, it's not our fault. But if we can explain why and what we're doing about it, I think is the way to approach it, right? No one likes to present bad numbers, but the key thing is to be able to explain it, to understand it. So yeah, I mean, I'm working with quite a lot of different asset manager, owner rep, and we have a pretty good relationship. The other thing as well is a lot of time they don't get access to the data, and for them it's a bit infuriating that they have to ask a general manager, that ask a revenue manager. So it's also, a good thing now that we can have those business intelligence platform where they could get access to and see all their platform, which help with that transparency process. Yes, it's always tough to get questions from an asset manager as to what's going on, but I think it is necessary. And like you very well mentioned, Jonathan, for the development of revenue managers, it should be the case. Yeah. Christy, any?
Great. Being a revenue manager myself, I think it's actually really important that we're involved in a lot of, I guess, traditionally separate hotel department conversations, but talking to the asset manager or the owners of a property is extremely important, being part of that monthly process and everything. It's also for strategic planning on the revenue manager's part as well. If they're talking about making improvements to the property, you've got scheduled renovation works and things happening, when they're discussing what is going to take place and the timing of that, that's really important to have the revenue manager's input of, no, I can't have 30 rooms offline during this period because I can sell them at really high rates, or, now's a really good time because half the hotel's going to be empty anyway because of COVID. Or, if you do X, Y, Z to the room, then I can charge an extra $50 a night for it. So it's going to, get you an ROI of ABC for your renovation. So it's definitely a very important thing to be involved at a high level in that communication.
All right. Okay. I think we are past time. It's already almost 11, so we've been delaying a bit. I think there's one more question in the chat. I'm not sure if we have time for this. It's regarding independent hotel. If they cut OTA benefits, how can they expand a hotel brand to international guests when the border reopen? Because independent hotels don't have strong potential to do market activities, international market, like OTA channels. That's a tough one.
Yeah, we said earlier about OTAs still be with us, right? It still be our friends. I don't think cutting the benefits is the answer. I'm an operator of hotels as well, but I think it's about understanding what each other's needs and communicate that, right? So as an independent hotels, yeah, it's tough because OTAs is one of your marketing channels to the outside world, and you need to weigh up the cost and effectiveness, right? You cut their benefits and they're not going to work with you, and then you struggle when the international markets open, and so that's no win-win situation. So it's just about sitting down and have that chat, and this pandemic brings everyone closer, So work with them and tell them, you know, what's the problem, make them understand. I'm sure they understand, but it's about understanding each individual cases and see how you can work together rather than being enemies. It's not going to be the case, right? So especially when you're independent hotels. So work with your OTAs. Is there any other way other than cutting the benefits, right? So make them understand the situation. I'm pretty sure they will help. It's about working. It's a partnership, right? It's not you and me, you or me. It's a partnership.
Right.
It's a partnership, but it's also it's making them do, you know, really you're using them as a distribution channel, so it's making them work for you and implement the strategies that you want on the OTA platform. So you know, the OTA marketing managers, the OTAs themselves come up with a lot of promotions and campaigns and different deals and things that you can do. And the OTA market managers are very, very good at convincing individual hotels that this is the best thing for them at the time. It's really delving in and having a look at what that particular promotion is, what's that campaign, what is this added discount going to do to my bottom line, who else is looking at doing that in market, what's worked in the past before, and how's this going to impact my other channels. So I don't want to undercut my corporate channels. So am I on the GDS? Am I going to be undercutting those corporate bookers, you know, assuming that corporate bookings are coming back? What else is this going to throw out? So it's looking at the whole picture and deciding on what you want to take advantage on the OTA platform and what you don't want to use.
All right. So we're reaching the end of the session for today. If anyone would like to continue the discussion, please feel free to connect with us on the platform. We'd be happy to have the additional discussion on any revenue management system or which solution that would fit your particular hotel, because we can't discuss every situation. So I'm sure Jonathan, Christian, and myself would be very happy to connect so we can see you there. All right. Well, thank you, Christy and Jonathan, for joining. Thank you so much. And
Thanks, Pierre.
I think that is enough for today.
Thank you. Pleasure to have you too. Talking to you too. Fantastic. Great.
Thanks, Jonathan.
It's been great talking to you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Right.